If you find yourself making journal pages that are really full and busy and frankly kind of underwhelming, then in this video, I'm going to show you how to bring in negative space even with all of your paint layers. Hi, my name is Bibi and welcome. I love to create videos for the artist who wants to bring more play back into their work. If you've ever worked with paint in an art journal, you probably know how easy it is to fill up that entire page with paint, leaving it feeling a bit crowded and underwhelming. When admiring other people's work, you've probably noticed one key thing: negative space. This may be an easy thing to recognize, but it's not always easy to achieve this in your own work. No matter what you do, the page ends up becoming really full, leaving no room or space for the eye to rest. In this video, I'm going to be showing you an example of a journal spread, how to prioritize negative space, and then how to reinsert that negative space if you've gone a little bit overboard and gotten carried away. Today I'm working in an 8x8 journal, but any size will do. This is just a journal that I've been working in when I'm working with pretty much just paint and a few other supplies. So for me as a mixed media artist, this means I'm probably not going to be adding collage in it, but that's not a hard stop that I can't add it. But that's kind of the direction this journal has been going for me. So you can kind of see where I'm coming from when I start this spread. I'm challenging myself to use paints in different ways and to still achieve the results that I want. So I started out by gessoing my page, and this was not an exact science. I did not cover the entire thing evenly. I just put it on in some areas that I know I'll for sure be adding paint, and this helps for a couple different reasons. I'm working on both sides of this journal, and so some paint ends up seeping through. The pages are not perfect. They are a nice thick paper, but you're still always going to have some show through. And so I put gesso in those areas to make sure it has a nice barrier between them. My other reason is later on when I try to come back in and reinsert some of that white space, I find that it blends a little bit better and more naturally looking when it has some gesso already on it. So I never do things the exact same way twice. So I don't always gesso my pages when I'm working on them. That just is something in this journal I'm doing. But if I'm working on a handmade journal that has all different types of paper, I don't necessarily want to cover that up with white to start with. So you'll need to play around with what kind of journal you're working in and what's going to work best for you. So something that will really help you with white space on your journal spread is making it a priority from the very beginning. So I'm using paints that were already out on my palette, and having just a small amount out is perfect. I want to use them up. I was using these colors for another project. And so not starting with a ton of paint already on my palette actually helps, because it helps me to have a little bit less restraint when I'm applying my color. It means that I'm trying to not go edge to edge with everything and maybe be a little bit more exact with how I'm placing things. I don't want to restrict myself too much that I lose the joy of creating. I still want to be loose in my movements. I'm just being a little bit more diligent to not always go all the way out to the edge. I'm personally keeping this abstract sort of design, the paint kind of towards the middle, but that doesn't mean I need to do it the same every time. It could mean that you're going to prioritize putting paint on the left side and leaving the right side a little bit more open. You could really change up how you want the composition to look, but prioritizing that you want white space or negative space to be a main focal point is a good thing to consider up front. Now, I'm going to be showing you how I can come back in and tame this out a little bit to add more of that negative space back in, but it's really nice if you start with a good amount so you don't have to come back in and cover everything up. In this video, when I'm talking, the negative space and white space mean the same thing. Now, negative space doesn't always need to be the white space. It can be a different color. It's just where less of the action is taking place. That's how I like to look at it. So you can still have a piece that is full of color, hardly has any white in it, and still achieve negative space. It just gives your eye a place to rest so that not everything is so busy. When there's stuff happening in every single part of your page, your eye doesn't know where to go, where to rest, and when you can achieve more of this blank space, your eye automatically goes to the more interesting parts. One of the things I love about having white space is that it makes the colors that I'm using even more vibrant. So these are already pretty vibrant colors to start out with, but if I were to cover the entire page corner to corner in this paint, it would look a bit overwhelming. So having that white actually makes my colors appear brighter and more vibrant and more interesting. So I've added quite a bit of color down on the page, and now I'm coming back in with my white paint. This is actually just a white gesso. I pretty much use white gesso instead of white paint for everything. And I'm adding back in where I went a little bit overboard. Now, a couple things to consider when you're adding this white paint back in. Is your paint already on the page completely dry, or is it still a little bit wet? Now, there's no right or wrong to how you apply this. You'll just need to know that if it's still a little bit wet, then you're going to get a little bit of that color from before bleeding into the white. And actually, in some places, I really prefer this. So when I was adding into that top right corner of the page, you can see some of that other color kind of blending in. And I think it integrates really beautifully when we can bring some of that other color into the white. It almost gives it, I think of it kind of like a cloud coming in and being semi-transparent over part of that color. I don't necessarily want a harsh line between white and between color. I want them to really flow and be integrated into one another. So if your page is completely dry and you come back in and add white and you find that things are looking a little bit too sharp or crisp, you can come back in with some of that other color and blend it out a little bit more like I'm doing here. That line just looked a little bit too precise for my liking, and I want things to flow a little bit more seamlessly between the two. If your white is not looking as pure as you would like and you do want it to be a little bit more opaque, don't be afraid to dry it and come back in and continue adding layers. Adding thin layers multiple times will be more beneficial than really thick layers that take a long time to dry. Try the method of adding multiple thin layers together. I'm coming back in and adding a few more pencil scribbles. I like to do this. It goes over some of that negative space that we talked about, but it just integrates the full thing together a little bit more. So I want you guys to go check out the blog post for this video where I will be listing a few more helpful tips so you can achieve a negative space in your own artwork as well. I hope that you guys loved this video. Make sure to comment below what your favorite takeaway was, and I would love to hear from you and chat with you soon. Thank you guys so much for watching and for supporting. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.